Good evening and welcome to Food for Thought Radio. This is the Farmers Finance segment. I'm your host, Gary Glendale. And with me in the studio is producer Paul and also the effing farmer. So we're going to be talking about food and finance and politics and everything else that is going on in the world today. So producer Paul, are you there?
I'm here. And producing
effing
like
farmer. Effing farmer, are you there?
Yeah, glad to be here.
Hey.
This is going to be fun.
This is going to be good, gents. This is going to be good because we all know what's going on in the world today. So, effing farmer, do you want to just introduce yourself as the listeners already know myself and producer Paul?
So, I'm a farmer in the southwest that has been on a journey, like all of us have, of things that no one in the right mind, if we went back 10 years of all our lives, maybe 15 years, we wouldn't believe any of this was happening.
Yeah.
And if we talked to our past selves, we'd all think we were going mental.
Yeah.
But there is a financial solution that many of us know, being BSV.
Yep.
And I'm actively using it as a method of payment, which could be painful in the future, Gary, because I could have bought some of like the most expensive sheep and straw that anyone will ever be able to imagine at some point.
well, yeah, but the thing is, you know, nobody is going to out-Trump Bitcoin Pizza Day, though, are they? 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 Papa John's pizzas.
Oh yeah, that's brutal. That one is.
Yeah, that was crazy, brutal. Like, so long as kind of like nobody remembers you, it's all right. You know, like James Housey losing 7,500 BTC on his laptop that he threw away. That's in a landfill in Swansea.
On that, it's just something for like listeners. On that, he would still have if he's still got his master key or his private keys, he would be able to reclaim that under BSV because he would have been given all the forks for those Bitcoin. He would be able to, with DAR, he'd be able to get them back, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and for those who are listening, what DAR is, DAR stands for Digital Asset Recovery Systems. So a digital asset recovery system is basically something that large corporations would need in order to have confidence to use the network later on, because if they're sending large amounts, as in billions of dollars around the world, paying for minerals with it as a form of payment, they would want to know that, they want to have confidence in not only who they were dealing with, but just in case something went wrong, there would be a digital asset recovery system that would cost a lot to actually implement, because it would include worldwide court orders and compensation for all the miners to update the ledger and change it, which is why it's called a consensus mechanism. And they would have to be compensated for their time for, the issue that you had, but you could prove you were in the right with, and therefore the ledger could be updated and you could have your digital assets recovered. So that's essential for corporations, doing billions of dollars worth of sales, like cargo ships and containers, that kind of trade, all around the world. But do you want to introduce yourself by just telling people what your wake up story was and how we came to be chatting to each other tonight?
So my original I'll give the short version, because I woke up over the last at least 15 years.
Oh, that's a long time, mate.
Yeah, so it started for me. I played rugby for a team called the Knights Templar, and I didn't actually know at the time what the Knights Templar were. So I played in the Sevens tournament rugby for them, and then went down the rabbit hole what the Templars were, and then that led me to Freemasonry, and then that led me to the Vatican, and then this sort of snowballed out of control for a very long time. But I didn't like there was bits that I was missing, which I'll get to in a minute. So basically I got turned into like a real fondness of history. And I also think that came with a concussion once, that I woke up and I suddenly liked history because it was random how it happened. So I just went through Greek mythology, Rome, to the Club of Rome, all sorts of things, Tartaria. It just all kept going for a very long time. And then obviously I got into crypto in 2016, 2017, and there was all this stuff of, you know, all these assets that were going to be world changing, groundbreaking. But at the time, there was also, when the hard forks happened, there was this like absolute massive, incredible hit job on BSV and Craig Wright. Now, at that time, I was very much F Craig Wright, F BSV. What a load of they're just all they're all morons. What a load of nonsense. Blah blah blah. And totally on the wrong side, and did not do my due diligence and research at that point in time. So I made a lot of money on something called Cardano. I also then lost one hell of a lot of money in my journey. And then about 3 years ago, what was I doing? I was listening to one of the last remaining crypto podcasts I actually liked because, you know, I think everyone gets to the journey, you get yourself burnt out of it. And right at the last 5 minutes of the show, the guy was like going about things that he was going to buy, and he said, "I always buy a few BSV because I can never count out my good Australian pal Craig Wright." And I was like, "Ding ding! Why, if you're the only person that's ever said anything positive about that asset and that man?" And then I bought 3, just like, I don't know, I'm just going to buy them and hold them and see what happens. And then I started. I became the effing farmer through sheer anger and rage what was happening in the world at the same time we met, which is how you found me.
Yeah.
And basically saying everything that I could possibly say and getting myself banned multiple times off social media platforms. And then you bumped into me and then started reiterating more. And I was already doing a little bit of research on BSV. And then I didn't need to do any more research because you came in and we spent about 4 or 5 weeks talking constantly every day, and I going off researching trying to prove you wrong. And I haven't been able to prove you wrong, Gary.
There we go, mate. There we go. I'm telling you. I mean, it's that's why they call it the truther movement. That's what we're in. You know, if anybody wants to come and debate, debate me or us on this topic, we've literally got all the receipts. Literally, when I say all the receipts, you know, I've got an article that I wrote called 365 Days of Bitcoin History, which is just literally an amalgamation of everything that has ever happened in Bitcoin over every single day for 365 days of each year. So I've literally followed this religiously because I needed to do all the research beforehand, because obviously, like, if you're making if you're investing, well, if you're putting funds into this, you're just like, hold on a minute, how can I be sure that my funds are safe? And so that's really what my research was all about. I was just like, what is this thing? And what got me into this actually was in 2017, when the narrative changed about Bitcoin from being a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, where it's just like, oh, this is great, we can now send value online in the private, outside of the central banking system. I was like, this is game changing. This is phenomenal. This is what we need, because we're sending value to each other outside of the central banking system in an asset that's fixed in supply. So there's no inflation. I was just like, has this technology cracked the foundation of every single social negative sort of impact that the world faces? Let's delve into this. And then when it was just like the narrative changed in 2017, saying, oh yeah, not many use it, store of value, digital gold, I was just like, hold on one second. If you're taking away the use case, if you're not meant to use it as they were now saying, then that's what use is that to me? And who else is going to buy it? Where's the demand going to come from? And then it was just like, well, hold on a minute. You're telling people not to use it, but at the same time, you're also removing the digital signatures, meaning that I can no longer prove that I'm actually sending a transaction and that any individual I'm transacting with has received it. I was like, I have no contractual credibility or economic value in there. Yeah, I was like, this is an absolute hatchet job. And the fact that they still kept the #1 legacy address in there for as they use it for plausible deniability, I was just like, whoa, this hatchet job is too professional to be just simply a bunch of numpties screwing it up. You know, they knew exactly what they were doing, and that's what actually woke me up. So you were awake well before I was. I was literally just interested in the finance because I knew that inflation was the cause of all the issues that our society has. And then it was just like, hold on a minute. What if there is a nefarious entity in control of the financial system? Like, how much damage would they have done? What would their intentions be? And how far along with their plans are they? Is what I was like. And obviously, you know, COVID coming along and seeing the opening of the London Olympics, I was just like, holy, like this could be bad. This could be
Yeah.
really bad. And obviously, when COVID came along, well, particularly the M1 money stock, I presume do you remember seeing that? The Louisiana Fed M1 money?
Yeah.
I was sick for about 4 days because for anybody from an economic perspective, that was the smoking gun. That was just what anybody needed, and that's when I went into full gear, and I was just like, "Whoa, what is this? What's gone on? Who do I need to contact? We need to start building an army here and protecting the farmers ultimately, because you know food security is absolutely essential for the for a nation to maintain its sovereignty, and that's how we got in contact with one another. Hence, we're now hosting Gary Glendale's Farmers and Finance segment on Food for Thought Radio. So, can you tell us, like, do the farmers just simply think that the government is completely incompetent, or because to me, if somebody was actually trying to steal my land off me, asset strip me, for no other reason other than, oh, we now think that you owe us tax, even though you never owed us this before. We've changed the rules, and it means your farms are going to end up in our possession.
Well, there's two groups of them now. So there's I'm going to say 50-50 because I'm a bit not quite sure exact. But there's 50% of farmers that have got their head in the sand. They don't really listen to anything, and if you said anything was going on in the world, that they'd probably like start shouting witch at you and wanting to like get you dunked in a pond. The other half, there's something that through my journey in the last 2 years of doing Farmers to Action, found that there's more farmers out there awake than I expected.
Oh.
And all because farmers are in a tractor for long periods of time, and they've all started listening to podcasts and stuff, and their ears have all been twigged.
Wow.
So there are quite a lot of them out there that are aware that the government are puppets and the WEF are pulling the strings, or other entities. They don't quite understand it, but they're seeing it and they're getting it. But there's still a lot of them that are literally just blaming Keir Starmer and thinking he's just someone else's puppet that is, in total control. The guy's got about as much charisma as a dead freaking fish. So he's got no charisma at all. So yeah, like that's where I found with farmers, the ones that I've spoken to, I've actually been quite open to the idea of another way to barter and pay for things that, especially when you say the tax man can't really see it, they really do enjoy that bit.
Well, all farmers need to know that tax is voluntary.
Yeah, that's going to be a hard sell at the moment. They aren't that awake.
Right, and we met at one of the farmers' protests in London, in Whitehall, where all those farmers. I mean, it was an extremely impressive display of unity by the farmers. How many of those farmers that were at that protest do you think were awake?
I'm going to say maybe 40-50%.
Oh, really?
The youngsters would be more awake than the older guard. Yeah, you got to think the youngsters are scrolling TikTok all the time, and it doesn't take more than one accidental algorithm hit to throw an Epstein file at you, or contrails, cloud seeding, all this sort of crap, and
Hmm.
suddenly someone's going down a rabbit hole, aren't they? And then once you work out there's a lie, you go and work out there's a second lie and a third one, and then you just keep going, don't you?
So what in terms of, obviously, because the rabbit hole is vast, and we need to get a message across to the farmers, something really simple, really clean, just like the WEF and the government do, build back better, blah 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 blah, all this bullshit. But it's the messaging, isn't it? So how what do you think would get their attention? I mean, something along the lines of, I mean, this is what I was trying to get across to maybe like Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe. Something about the law, like literally, if there is no victim, there's no crime. If there is no claimant, there's no claim, and if there's no contract, there is no obligation. And they are the founding principles of our society. That's it. So the government making a claim, oh, you owe us this. Well, do I have a contract with you? That's first of all. And also, who are you and have I agreed to this? Because they govern by consent. And that's it. That is it. Same with the police. They police by consent. So the question is, do you police or govern by consent or not? Because if you don't, that's tyranny. That is malfeasance in public office. So something like that would, if we had a message to the farmers and they were just, oh, actually, oh, I see now, that makes sense. Or just the fact that the government or anybody can only go after you if your name is on something. So therefore, what you do is you remove your name and ideally have it in a trust, because a trust is all about a trust is all about taking value out of the situation, so that no one owns anything. You have trustees who actually have shared ownership of it and manage it on behalf of the beneficiary. And that's a private contract between the trustees themselves and the beneficiary to manage the assets or the estates, in a private manner. And therefore, no one individual is responsible for anything. And then in the trust, so long as you have a non-disclosure agreement, and if the government says, oh, right, well, we need to know who the trustees and the beneficiary are, you can say, right, well, there's a non-disclosure agreement in here, but there is a disclosure fee because you have to give them a remedy. So you just make sure that the disclosure fee is much higher than the value of the assets in the trust. So you say to them, oh, right, well, it's just going to cost you £33 million in order to pay the disclosure fee to find out the information that you want. How would you like to proceed? I guess that's what people really need to know. Would something like that, spark their interest, do you think?
I think it would spark their interest. I think some of them have looked into trusts, but they've not looked into the trust that we've discussed. They've looked into the trust where you go to do it all properly through a solicitor or lawyer.
So a solicitor and a lawyer is registered to the solicitors,
bar.
To the solicitors regulatory authority, which again is related to the bar, and then all lawyers, including solicitors, have an oath to the bar because it's the bar that pays their bread and butter. So and also that wouldn't be a private trust because you've disclosed it to a solicitor. So literally, a private trust is between the individuals.
Yeah, but this is the problem. Even though some of them are woken up, they're still in the system, and it's how to basically get them out of the system, or get them to understand there is a way out of the system. Because at the moment, everyone doesn't know because we've been kept in the dark, as it were, and not know the truth of our sovereign power. That it's getting them to know that there is another way, and at the same time as that is well, it's a really hard one because farmers are, probably one of the last as a whole group free thinkers. Even if they're not awake, they're free thinkers because every farmer's his own boss.
Mm.
It's not like any other industry, really. Every farmer's his own boss. So it's like we all sort of joke, you could throw all 200 and there's 230,000 farm holdings. You could throw every 230 different farmers, 230,000 different farmers at the same problem, and they'd all fix it differently. And it's getting them to all understand that there is another way, and that bit is a bit that even I'm finding tricky to work out.
So I would say, personally, to me, that all it is when you tell someone about another way, the initial emotion is fear of the unknown. That's literally all it is. It's fear of the unknown. However, if you have enough economic power, sovereign economic power that is out of their system, and you're just like, well, actually, I'm financially free. I'm beholden to nobody here, and I've got assets outside of anybody's jurisdiction. Yeah, I'll give this new way a go because my first decision went well.
How do we get to a trust when most farms are in a huge amount of debt?
Well, see, this is where Bitcoin comes in. Imagine if all the farmers are multi-millionaires off of Bitcoin. And they're just like, well, actually, whoever it was that told me about this, and I'm starting to get this now. Now I'm actually financially free. I've really not got too much to lose by putting my farm in a trust, because at the moment, what I'm fearing is not being able to put a roof over my head and food on the table, and losing the farm to Big Brother. So initially, what I'm going to do is just bend over and take it from Big Brother and do absolutely everything he tells me to do, in order to appease him, and hopefully, because I've been a good boy, they'll let me off. But little do they know, Big Brother is Satan himself, and he is not going to stop. He is literally going to come after you and your assets. And I think maybe that's what farmers haven't woken up to. They think, and this is the thing, you cannot comply your way out of tyranny. And maybe these farmers just don't know that it's actually tyranny that's coming in. They just don't want to believe it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think they believe in tyranny at all. And I also don't.
Well, do you think they just think that the government is unbelievably incompetent? I mean, like there's a line. There's a line of incompetence and absurdity.
Well, there's a lot of people out of touch out there. I'm not an advocate for religion, but deeply spiritual. Our spirituality has been drained from us. We've been dragged to a science-based system, which is all, and I've got all sorts of issue with that. That we've gone so far away from the spiritual side. The amount of people now, you sort of say God or the devil, they'd just be like, nonsense. It's just like fairy tales and bullshit. And little do they know, there's been a war going on for a very, very, very long time, and it's still going. And suddenly there's a whole bunch of us that have just woken up in the middle of it and gone, oh, wow. Now, they're a long way from that. As I said, what's woken up is there's a bit on chemtrails. There's a couple farmers that are very, very, very awake, but that's probably in like the 2 to 3%. They're starting to wake up, and they're like, they can see chemtrails. They can see that their soil samples are coming back, and there's trace metals that shouldn't be in their fields. They're seeing all of that. They're seeing that where they're having human sewage spread, they're basically, after it's happened, they're told that, well, their fields can no longer put into human consumption for like the next 30 years now.
What?
The microplastics that are going out with that, like, they are seeing certain stuff, but they're still in largely closed-minded to the next levels, as it were. And the trust thing, and that's where, like, I've spoken to some about trust, and they're like, "Oh, well, it's just an expensive way of going to a lawyer and getting it put in, and then it's like expensive to get it out again." And they don't actually know that there is actually a thing of a private trust. And then, do private trusts work if all your assets are in debt? Do you have to own it outright first? And I know our chats of, if we get all the farmers to have some BSV goes up, suddenly they can get themselves out of debt, and then they could be in trust and they won't be able to be touched again.
Yes, that's my
But
plan.
but that is, you know, I've been working very hard at that, but it is hard. It is really hard.
What? Explaining it to farmers?
Not explaining the BSV bit. The next parts. They understand something that can make money. They get that. But the next part of, you know, a trust and to keep your farm sovereign from the evils in the world is a bit far-fetched for a lot of them.
All right. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, that's secondary. Primary is just simply getting everybody using the original protocol and genuine Bitcoin, and explaining to them, you know, what Jeffrey Epstein did to it in order to corrupt it.
Well,
Jeff's been up to a lot, hasn't he?
Yes.
He's been up to quite a few things. He's had his finger in too many pies, that lad. But yeah,
Including
I think, you know,
Bitcoin.
it's like including Bitcoin. I think there are so many, you know, as Mr. F in Farmer said. I don't know quite how to address you. Do I call you F? It's a bit tricky,
Freddie,
that, isn't it? But,
Freddie the farmer.
There is so much to it, and it's a bit like when you sit down to it, you're not facing a 5-course lunch. It's like 27 courses, like one of those ancient things. There's so many bits to it. You've got to really start off with what they can nibble at. And I think, obviously, the one thing that everybody's still pretty hardwired about is trying to progress financially. Of course, one of the unfortunate concomitants of that is that if you actually succeed in the current financial system, you're actually harming everybody else, because the whole thing is a complete crock of poo. It's just going to take a while. There's so many different things to talk about. I mean, I'm aware of trusts, but I'm not knowledgeable about them. And you can talk to so many people about them and get different response. Oh, you don't want to trust like this. That's not really private. It's exhausting. It's very time consuming. Everybody says they've got an answer, but it's a matter of finding people that have lived it and done it. I think there are people that are doing that.
I mean,
Well,
I'm in contact with people.
That there would be a great way to put it to farmers, is having farmers are great if they've seen someone do it first.
I think we all are. Absolutely. Okay. You can't tell them. None of us, I think possibly, if you look through most of your life, you've never been told too much. We're a stiff-necked people, right? Seriously. Yeah. And so someone says, let me tell you something. Like, yeah, okay. And you're just off. You're not paying any attention. But if they say, let me show you what I've just built, you're in. It's just a direct thing. It goes past intellect and equivocation, all those other things that come through with the language. You just go, look, I built this. Oh, can I touch it? Yeah, bang, bang. Hey, it works. Yep, look, this is what it does. Great, I'll have one. It's that simple. It's that direct. And so I think, obviously, people running around with their BSV saying, look, I've got this. Great, that helps. It's a much shorter conversation. People haven't got time to take it on board. And it's not so much that they're thick. We're all thick in a way if you're introduced to a topic that you know nothing about. You're so, I've mentioned it before. If we were all invited along to a particle physics meeting, we'd be a waste of space. Unless you are particle physicists in your spare time. I don't know, but I've said this. Yeah. What do you think, Paul? I'm in the wrong room. Well, I have a clue what you're talking about. I'm not grounded in any of this. I'm a waste of your time. I'm going. It's a bit like I'm in the wrong class. So I think you've got to find out where people are at right now, and I think we're getting more and more of a handle on that because more and more people are speaking. This is the first thing. People have been so quiet for so long in real terms. So the more that they talk, the more of a handle you get on where people are emotionally, spiritually. Very important, right? They are going to get introduced on this path, I think, to some concepts that they possibly had thrown in their lug holes when they were children and have discarded for the rest of their lives. But these things don't go away. They're the truth. And we are in an epic battle. Of that, there is absolutely no doubt, and it is biblical, literally.
Yeah, this is the
and it
war
is
to end all
spiritual warfare
wars.
in high places. Literally, it's all of those things.
Yeah, well, tell you what then. I mean, we may as well just start here on basic education because I've been educating effing farmer on Bitcoin because obviously he had lots of questions for me. But Freddie Farmer, do you fancy trying to explain to Paul what Bitcoin is? Because he's just received his first multiple tens of BSV.
Multiple tens.
Yeah.
Get on.
Big bag holder. Get in there.
Nice.
I've only just
He's a
started.
whale,
You wait till
Sean.
we get going. There'll be thousands. I'm going to go nuts, mate.
Have a go explaining what it is and what he's just received from moi.
Is Gary
You
putting you on
have-
the? Is Gary putting you on the spot?
Yeah.
Effing farmer.
No, it's fine. No, like, because I talk to so many people about this now. Basically, Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer cash system which is commoditized and backed by data, which is awesome. The one thing that we use now more than anything else is data. In previous times, there's been gold, silver, tulips, all sorts of things. And then on top of that, it is a simple, well, it's not totally simple, but from someone looking at it from the outside, not wanting to know exactly what it does, is a digital ledger of a trail of signatures, which is perfect. As I tell farmers, if they want to use their paymail codes, don't put their name in it because then that makes it really even harder for them to be tracked down who they are. Just put your name in it, or it's up to you, isn't it? But yeah, it's a pure peer-to-peer cash system for the masses, developed for no matter if you're someone in the Philippines earning £5 a day or in Wall Street earning millions, that everyone's got the equal opportunity to use it. So it is like, unlike what they've done with BTC, which is hijack it, and unless you've got loads of money, you can't afford to use it. And if there is a problem at the moment which BTC is having, which is falling, if people rush to get out of that, it only does 7 transactions per second, which effectively would be the world's biggest nightmare of anyone trying to exit funds, because they wouldn't have to worry about selling their Bitcoin. They wouldn't be able to move their Bitcoin. Yeah. BSV went on what Satoshi's vision always was, and this is something I really don't understand. If anyone reads the white paper, there's only one, and even now, and I hate AI, but even Grok now is acknowledging the fact that the real Bitcoin that follows the white paper is BSV and not the other two, is a peer-to-peer cash. There is no such thing as it being a digital gold store of value. Now, in my journey, I was I'm going to say lucky on this. I put some money into a project called BitConnect, and what BitConnect was a Ponzi scheme. Yeah, not a huge amount. I put $100 in.
Yeah.
So what BitConnect did, it was a Ponzi scheme that basically every day you would compound interest, and then, as anyone does, you put the interest back into the value, so you compound more the next day. Well, it was basically a pyramid scheme because the interest was only high because people joining, and when people slowed down and stopped joining is when BitConnect crashed. So that woke me up to a Ponzi scheme and what a Ponzi scheme does and what it's about. And then when you go from the outside looking in on Bitcoin, it states, and Craig Wright's always stated, it is like money is supposed to flow. That's why it's called liquidity. It's not supposed to be dammed up like all these big hedge funds like to do, putting all this value behind walls. It's supposed to flow. And the reason like everyone's pissed off in the world right now is no one's got any money to flow to do what they want to do and be free. So BTC has, 7 transactions a second, doesn't help anyone. BSV, 1 million to 1.1, even to 10 million transactions per second, is possibly could become the most valuable thing because it's data It's file sharing, music sharing, film sharing, emails, anything that we can all possibly put onto the internet could go onto a ledger with a microtransaction to stitch it to the ledger for all of eternity.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that is a very, very powerful thing.
And
Have I done you justice, Gary?
yeah, mate, you've done well. You've done well. What I would say is that just it's the digital signature that ensures that every transaction is unique. That's amazing, so that it can't be replicated, because Bitcoin is just simply a bit of NFT data. But you buy Bitcoin in order to use the ledger for all of your digital requirements. So if you're a farmer and you want to track your supply chains, or if you want a historical record of your soil samples, or if you want a historical record of where your food is going, how long it's been kept for, the weight of the bag, like the complete process, even the supplies of produce and things for your own farm. And also to be in the private, because at the moment, if you have a political point of view that is, outside of the government narrative or goes against the government narrative, well, guess what? The government are in bed with the banks. They can shut your account. They even debanked. They tried to debank Nigel Farage, of all people. So it's clearly obvious that they're using coercion. And this kind of ledger, where you can use for your digital requirements, where data can't be cracked, hacked, altered, changed, or deleted, is effectively a truth network that is a private truth network. So that means that if a dispute should arise between anybody who is using the ledger for a transactional purpose, you can, if you want, present that evidence to a third party, who can solve the dispute for you, which should be presented to a jury of peers, to find out who's done what, or to cast their eye over any contractual agreements that you might have. But that's the main thing. It's getting into the private, because the government that are acting tyrannically, they cannot do anything if they don't know anything about you, which is why they want you to surrender your information. For the greater good. Oh, you need to tell us this. You need to tell us that. You're like, no, I don't. I am the chief executive, sovereign king. You are public servants, and all of our laws, are founded on an agreement between us and the king. And we only have a king if we decide we want a king, because he's the chief administrator, and everybody else are public servants. So and also you cannot delegate authority, which is the Cartona principle, because
how does that work at the moment? Because we don't have a king.
Well, precisely. So if we don't have a king, then the public servants have no authority whatsoever, because they claim to get their authority from the king. If there is no king, then they have no authority at all. Nothing.
So how do we get that known out there? Because it's very obvious, but a lot of people don't see it.
Oh, if that's what people want to know, I mean, it was the Privy Council that actually correctly labelled Charles as a liege lord, because there was no crown to pass on to him, because his mother didn't sign her coronation oath correctly. She signed it at the top, so therefore she wasn't taking responsibility or accountability for any of the terms and conditions within it. So therefore, because she didn't sign her oath correctly, she didn't actually have the crown, and therefore there was no crown to pass on, which means Charles is now a liege lord, and this is why the Labour government tried to remove HM from the advertisements of the government. They said UK government rather than His Majesty's government. I mean, it's treason, because what they've done is they've deposed the monarch. And they've got no right to depose the monarch. That is high treason themselves.
What do you think? What do you think all the royalists are going to do when they work out Queenie was a very naughty lady?
Oh, I don't think they ever will, mate. To be honest, but really,
well, I know she was naughty, but there's so many things going on in the background in that space. I'm so glad I'm not in it. That there's all these applications of pressure and coercion. I mean, it's a conundrum. There's loads of them. even if you were to find someone that we were all happy, we would be quite happy with them as king. How do you protect them in a space like that? Because it's very difficult. So we're getting reports that the Queen betrayed us. And certainly in the, what was it, 71, whatever, when she signed that agreement to go into
72.
Europe or whatever it was. Yeah, that's a crystal clear example of it. Was that under her own volition, though? You see, I think
she had
they're
no
nearly
right
all
to sign it
puppets.
anyway. She had no right to sign it.
No, she didn't. But how much power has she got? She's a lady. Her power comes from what? The obedience of those around her to execute her will. What are they like? Are they betraying her? I suspect so. Is the Privy Council full of really great people that are honourable and love the English? I doubt it very much. Same for the civil service. It's as if, as they move up these hierarchies of authority, they become, quite naturally, distanced from the very people that they are pretending to serve. And they occupy their own cultural space. And they have their own warfare in there.
Yeah, but also, who is it that manipulates and effectively pulls the strings on them?
Well, I'm going to say banks, ultimately.
Absolutely, that's the answer I was looking for. Spot on.
Well, yeah. And I think, trying to boil it down into really simple principles and dynamics. I mean, they do it internationally between nations, but they also do it on us, the tribes in the nations. They set us into an adversarial condition. And, the nature of the so-called money, which isn't the currency that we are furnished with by this forceful law that they impose upon us, effectively sets all of us against one another in a very subtle, quiet, 24/7 permanent state of affairs for your entire life. People are competing for a resource because apparently it's scarce. But if it is scarce, it's brought about by the banks. And if it's in plenty, it's brought about by the banks. And we can see this really from all these controlled economic explosions like Wall Street in 1929 and anything else you want to think of. They're not natural events. I mean, they set the Fed up in when? 1913? Just before World War One.
Yep.
It took them 16 years to destroy the American economy and get complete control of it, 1929. That's because they just went to it straight away. You need a flexible currency, they said, or money supply. Do we? Said the Americans, not knowing quite what was about to happen, apart from people like Louis McFadden and several others who are right on it and have written some amazing stuff. But nobody knows about these things. Again, it's not, even in this conversation, you can see that the knowledge exists to address the problem. The challenge is, how do we tell the farmer over the fence? It's and it's not his fault or her fault. It's not their fault. That's the challenge, is to take these to me it is anyway. It's an aspect of it that I look at a lot. How do I talk to the man in the pub who's reading the Sun newspaper and say, sit down, I want to tell you something, and inside 30 seconds he's on fire? That's what we need. It's that kind of stuff, and it's got to be simple, and I've got to show him something. Certainly the things on the phones, the screen showing the BSV is going to help, isn't it?
It would certainly. Well, see, this is what number go up is all about. It's called price discovery, where something gets the attention of everybody just because suddenly the market price has gone up. People are just, hold on a minute.
Yep.
What's going on there? What's creating that demand? And then you get FOMO, which is people jumping in because they're fear of missing out on something because they just simply don't know what something is. But this is where knowledge is power. So if you've got insider knowledge, which is what I've got, and nobody, I wish there was other people that had it, because then I wouldn't have to spend so much time explaining it to people. But I would say 10 people with a fundamental understanding can achieve far more than 1,000 people who don't have a clue. So I don't try to necessarily broadcast it. What I do is I focus on individuals who I think can actually do something with it. And those people who are awake, which is why it's just, right, so that there's a problem. Well, let me tell you all about it, and let me tell you the solution. Because if you want to come up with a solution, obviously you have to first of all fundamentally understand the problem. And I seem to have, I've gone right. Not only have I gone right the way back through the modern day financial system, I've gone right the way back to the Bible. And remember in, I think it's Revelation 7:13, is it? Those of the temple of Satan who claim to be a particular religion but are not and do lie. So are you both familiar with that one? Well, check this out.
Yes.
So they're fake. You know, they claim to be this religion, but they're fake. So the question is, who are they, and what can we call them? You know, without being classified as anti-Semitic, which is again just what they weaponize against us. Well, here is a truth bomb that has never been revealed to the entire world. Let me tell you what they are. They are Rephamians. That's what they are, and they're literally in the book of Genesis. They're referred to as Rephaim or Rephate, but in plural they're Rephamians. That's who we're up against.
Well, yeah, they are. There's many names because they've changed throughout history. It's a bit like when you read these books of ancient mythology. You go, is this? They go, no, this god's the same. He was called this over here and that over there. It's the same guy, and it gets tricky to work out. But that so-called Star of David, it's not a Star of David at all. It's the Star of Remphan.
Yeah, Star of David doesn't exist.
Nope.
Well, this is where. Well, so funny you should mention that. So the Star of Remphan and the followers of Remphan are referred to as Rephaim. That's where the name Rephaim comes from. So plural is Rephamian. So they are Rephamians, that which comes from the Star of Remphan. Followers of Remphan are Rephaim. Therefore, plural, they are Rephamians. That's exactly where it comes from.
Of course, introducing the layman to the adversary in such a direct way is rarely effective, I've found.
Well,
rarely.
If somebody told me that, I'd be that's fascinating because that's literally the earliest reference to them is but
you are a troublemaker. You're a troublemaker, Gary, because you go around thinking about things. Now, more and more people are beginning to do that. This is a really good habit to get into. What, you mean I've got to think about it? Yeah, really. Yeah, you do. I mean, we can't do it. You're thinking for you, and you can do it whenever you want. Just switch it on and increase the amount of time you spend each day doing that activity because it will stand you in more than good stead. I think, that's... It's not that people can't take this stuff on board. It's almost like there's a time constraint as well. So... or maybe there isn't. Maybe it just keeps... I mean, it's been running for thousands of years in an absolute bloody mess. Literally a bloody mess as well, many times, over and over again. And people have often not been able to get to the root of the whole thing. But there is a very simple and rather unpleasant and unpalatable route to the whole thing. And, of course, you can't talk about it. You can't go around actually defending yourself verbally against this thing because you're a very naughty boy if you do that. But there's more than one way, I think, to skin this communications cat. Let's put it that way. There's all sorts of approaches that we can take, and we must take them. So
well, I think the main thing is to protect the farmers financially. That's the main thing because what's happening to them is that they are being asset stripped. One day they're just simply going to wake up and they're just, hold on a minute, this family farm has been in the family for hundreds and hundreds of years. Suddenly, our family isn't on it. We don't have an income anymore. What on earth happened? I haven't done anything wrong. I'm a farmer. I just simply grow my vegetables or my cattle. And
we got a bit of interference here, Gary. Can you?
Are you picking up interference, or is it farmer?
What are you hearing?
Just
lots of crinkling.
Yeah, on the mic.
Yeah,
and a little bit of feedback.
Better?
Yay! There we go. Yeah, nice one.
It could be. Or if you're not talking, sorry to get all bossy like, but if you're not talking, just mute yourself, and then it won't come back. Yeah, you've got a slightly crackly connection, and just instantly unmute yourself and do stuff. Yeah. Sorry to be a bit bossy.
That's all right.
But it helps though.
Yeah. So it's the farmers need to basically I mean, if I was in financial trouble, which I think a lot of these farmers are, or they're finding it really difficult, do you think they would be open to a solution? I mean, or are they just simply going to protest the government and then hope the government change because they want to go back to the way it was, not realizing that the reason they're changing it is for the purpose of asset stripping because they have nefarious intentions?
I think on that one, they're getting fed up with protesting because they are seeing it really isn't making as much difference as we were all hoping it was going to. They want a solution, but whether they believe the solution is there in front of their eyes is a totally other thing. Because I've had a lot of successes talking to farmers about BSV and the fact that it can be used as a financial system, and I've had quite a few that are like, oh no, that's just waste of time. I'm not going into any of that. Blah blah blah. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one on how to portray that to them, if that makes sense.
Well, the good thing is, I would say that we've probably only got a very limited amount of time now, seeing as we're in 2026. Those who are on board, great. Those who won't be, will be. But they'll just be playing catch up, and they'll be sick as a dog thinking, why didn't I get into this earlier when effing farmer approached me and told me about it? You know, I think the regret that people are going to sense when what we're telling them sort of comes to fruition, because as we both know, the man himself said it will be brutal, immediate, and final, and it's not going to happen any other way. So I would say literally we just I very rarely like to talk about price or be price incentive, but even now I'm just like, look, it's 12 quid. It's 12 quid for one. So the most, even if you just get one, the most you're going to lose is 12 quid. Like, seriously?
Yeah.
You know, it's nuts. It's literally
psychologically,
the
this thing about price as well. The thing about price, it's really interesting. You know, gold's a typical one because recently a lot of talk about gold and silver because the price is, shooting up or shooting down or whatever, or it's massively undervalued and blah, 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 blah. But the interesting thing is, it's a completely right in your face thing, people measure it in terms of dollars or pounds or euros. And I used to have this conversation with people about how much is an ounce of gold? What's its value? Well, it's quite simple. An ounce of gold, if you want to buy an ounce of gold off me, it costs you 1 ounce of gold. So you wouldn't do the trade, would you? Because you're looking for... But we measure it in dollars and these things. Now, it's interesting with the BSV thing. As and when it gains substance and traction and begins to sort of go stratospheric and garner all the human energy, price discovery, when that begins to happen in a big way, what are we going to call it?
Well, it's still.
What are we going to call it?
Well, it's still. So you're transferring Bitcoin, but the value of the Bitcoin is measured in fiat currency. So it's the fiat currency that's the measure. So it doesn't matter if BSV itself is worth like $1, $2, $3, $4 million per coin. You're only ever going to be transferring £10 worth of it.
I can see a point where confidence in the fiat currencies and knowledge of the fiat currencies will evaporate over a short period of time. So we would then be faced with a situation, possibly down the line, where people go, how much is it worth? They go, oh, $100 trillion. It's a bit like the Weimar Republic with the wheelbarrows of money, right? I'm not foreseeing a problem. It's just a sort of an observation, because whenever an authority sets the value of a thing, i.e. a fiat currency, or when Rothschilds were setting the price of gold, you've got a warped market. I mean,
yeah, but
you can't help but have one.
So you can't set the price. The price is literally set on
Of course, I've got that with this.
20.
As long as I can buy wonky carrots, as long as I can buy my wonky carrots from the FM farmer and his pals, right, with this stuff direct, and I can eat, right, that's it. That's really the thing. It's not about... Because one of the things about sort of clusters of people that are very knowledgeable, who start off with good intentions, this has happened so many times throughout history, is that along the way, as they accrue power, they begin to lose sight of their original goal, shall we say. It happens. And they end up becoming the very thing that they were trying to replace. I'm not saying we're going to do that here. I'm just pointing it out. It's a common thing. Oh, I'm now in charge. You're all going to do it my way.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, that can't happen here, because if you get wealthy in Bitcoin, then your wealth is based on the continuation of the ledger, and that ledger is a truth ledger, and therefore you don't want the protocol to change. So you want the base to constantly be economically competitive. You want there to be a chain of digital signatures, and that just simply encourages truth. And also you want it to be private, because you don't want to start bragging to people, oh, by the way, I'm a multi-millionaire, because all you're doing is putting a target on your back. It encourages people to continue to be private, but act in honor and credibility. There we go. That's the end of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed it.
I did. Nice to meet you, Effing Farmer.
Nice to meet you, Paul.